So today we are doing a review of how to solve inequalities. So we are going to review the whole thing. So we're going over how to solve different types of inequalities. So we have one-step and multi-step inequalities. So for one-step and multi-step inequalities, just follow the basic steps of how to solve a regular equation. So if it had an equal sign, you do the same things. If you don't remember what those steps are for solving an equation, they should be in your notes from chapter 1. But that means that you are using inverse operations. That means if something is being added, you subtract to move it to the other side. If something is being multiplied, you have to divide to move it to the other side. These are inverse operations. If something is being multiplied, you cannot subtract it to the other side. You have to do division. So follow those ones. And always know that if you multiply or divide, if you multiply or divide by a negative number, you reverse the sign. Don't forget to sing your song when you see a negative number and you have to multiply or divide. So, sing it. Sing it, sing it, sing it. Then if we have a compound inequality, compound inequality meaning we have an and or an or, as we saw in our homework, sometimes it tells you it's an and or an or. Sometimes you have to look at the graph to figure out which way it's going. An and means the middle. And, like holding hands in the middle. Or is the outside. Like paddles in a boat, it's an oar. So that's shading the outside here. To solve these, write the two inequalities that you have. An or will always be 2. An and could be 1, written with 2, like symbols in it. So you could have your let's do it like this. 2 is less than x, which is less than 7. This is an and, written as one long one, or you could split it into 2. Then, when you write out your solution, make sure you use the words and or. If you have it as 2, you need to have the words. If you have it just as 1, you don't necessarily have to write and. Alright, and if we have an absolute value inequality, that's what we've been doing most recently. You need to get your absolute value expression by itself. So we'll say isolate the absolute value. Get the absolute value by itself. Then you will write it as a compound inequality, meaning you split it and write it as 2. That means 1 stays the same, but no absolute values, and 1 is the same, but you switch the sign. Your inequality symbol switches to face the other way, and you have the opposite sign, so your number becomes negative. One stays the same, 1 switches. Then you solve each inequality. You only need to graph when it says to graph. So, I also want to go over what we talked about yesterday with absolute values of inequalities where there are negative numbers. So, absolute value means the distance from 0. The absolute value of 4 is 4. The absolute value of negative 4 is 4. They are each 4 units away from 0. This means your distance cannot be negative. So it cannot be negative. If you have something like the absolute value of negative 4 is greater than a negative number, we just choose 1. This means the absolute value of negative 4 is 4 and is greater than negative 1. This is true. if you have some number, doesn't matter what it is, some number, and it is greater than any negative number, greater than or equal to, could be, this is all real numbers. Every time. Because your distance is always larger than a negative number. On the other hand, if you have the absolute value of negative 4 is less than negative 1, this means the absolute value of 4, negative 4, is 4, which is less than negative 1. This is not true. So that means if we have some number, the absolute value of some number, positive or negative, is less than a negative number, that means its distance is some negative number smaller than what this says. That is no solution. Every time. No solution if it's less than a negative number. I hope that helps. I am very sorry about the confusion yesterday, but this is what it should be.